For a long time now, the C-Class lineage has been one of the most accessible Mercedes-Benz models you could buy. But even with the CLA changing that, the C still remains one of the best entry points into luxury cars. On the other end of the C-Class spectrum, the C63-AMG is one of the best AMG sedans that you can put your money on. Now, AMG wants to go mass market, so bridging the gap between the C-Class and the C63 is this, the C43. So is it the best of both the worlds, or is it just a marketing gimmick to capitalize on the AMG brand? Let's find out. The C43 doesn't look as muscular as the C63. Blame it to the omission of the more defined bonnet from the 63 and the lack of the flared fenders and the trademark C-AMG gills. Even the air dams don't gape as wide. The single bar AMG grille makes way for the more bling diamond grille, with an AMG badge of course to add distinction over its lesser counterparts. While the C63 gets a black finish for its splitter and diffuser, the C43 gets a silver finish and a more sober design for these aero bits. The C43 also gets its sportier appeal over the regular C-Class with a boot lip spoiler, a smoked glass house, larger ventilated brakes with rearward mounted calipers, and black 18-inch wheels wrapped in 245 section tires. The C43, however, looks quite restrained. Choose a flashy color and maybe you will turn some heads. Choose a subtle white or a grey and she will just probably pass off as just another C-Class. The C43 Coupe could have probably looked more convincing. Nevertheless, step in and you will be pleasantly surprised at how the elegantly flowing cockpit of the C-Class can look so inviting and sporty in the C43. The subtle red stitching on the black upholstery, the attention-grabbing red seat belt, the wood and the aluminum inserts, and the racy pedals all establish the car's intentions. Unlike the sporty bucket seats in the C63, this one appoints more accommodating luxury bias seats. It gets a flat-bottom steering wheel as well, but without any AMG badging on it. So if you are the type who likes to be reminded often of the badge that you have invested in, then this cabin will tell you that the C43 is more Mercedes-Benz than AMG. That is also evident the moment you start up the engine. It doesn't wake up with a typical growl of an AMG. It feels almost as silent as a C200 petrol on startup. There is a bit of noise past the 3000 RPM, but it just doesn't match the typical maniacal roar that you expect from an AMG. And that's a bit of a downer. There are no crackles and pops and lacks the oral drama that you expect from this badge. After all, it's a smooth V6, the same 3-litre unit that you find in the SLC 43. But despite its humble output of 367 PS, this motor is eager to quickly put all that power down to the road. In fact, the C43 AMG is a bit heavier than the pint-sized SLC 43, but claims the same 0-100 sprint time of 4.7 seconds. And that is pretty quick. This engine is a free revving motor and it loves to race to its 6,500 RPM red line. In fact, you will keep on hitting the limiter very often if you choose the manual mode. But what I really love about this motor is all of that 520 Newton meters of torque is available from as low as 2000 RPM, meaning that the engine never really feels out of breath. Drive around town or cruise on the highway and it will do so without any drama. Step on the pedal though and it will surge forward with a reassuring manner. Of course, it doesn't have the punch of the C63 AMG, but it certainly has a much stronger shove than your regular C-Class. The engine is mated to a 9G-tronic gearbox, which is quite an efficient operator. And as we have experienced in the past, this gearbox is a little slow to downshift, but when it comes to upshifts or response to part throttle, it is quite quick. You also get this additional digital ref counter in the instrumentation, which gives you the ideal shift points. However, the positioning is sort of pointless. I would have rather liked Mercedes-Benz to provide a heads-up display, and this being a function of that. The gearbox puts the power down to the road via the 4MATIC all-wheel drive system, with up to 69% of the power going to the rear wheels. And as you would expect, this car doesn't get provoked that easily. In fact, the torque vectoring makes sure that this car isn't as tail happy as the C63. And surprisingly, it doesn't display the inherent understeery nature that you get with most all-wheel drive cars. This is surprisingly agile and nimble around bends. It makes for quite a predictable handling package, and the agility makes it an easy driver too. But what mars the fun is that suspension setup. The suspension feels quite road biased even if you get these adaptive AMG dampers which provide for a more sportier setup than the C-Class. They still remain quite squishy. Even if you engage the sportier Sport Plus mode, there is still quite a bit of lateral movement. Speaking of driving modes, there are the usual suspects: Eco, Comfort, Sport and Sport Plus. The Sport Plus mode stiffens everything up but also displays a pronounced transmission shock, which I believe is engineered to enhance the feel. To me, the Sport mode was just as good on the suspension behavior and engine response minus the shocks, and was therefore my choice for the mountain runs. Comfort and Eco mode are ideal for urban use and highway cruising respectively. The car soaks up most bumps with ease, but sharper bumps cause the suspension to thud. And like most sports cars, speed breakers aren't very friendly to the C43 either. The steering is quite precise and communicative. However, I would have liked a little bit more weight to go with that communication. It's got a good on-center feel which works really well on the highways, but around twisties, it feels a tad too light. The C43 has amazing braking manners. Even after multiple runs up and down the mountain, brake fade seemed minimal and braking was progressive and predictable. The Continental tires contribute largely to the confidence-inspiring braking too. Everything then works well in the C43, but its dynamics make it come across as a sport tourer than a corner carver, in that it also feels more like a luxury saloon with the power bumped up and not an AMG of today's times. Perhaps AMG agrees too, and that is why the powertrain doesn't subscribe to their one-man, one-engine philosophy. The advantage though is that the C43 costs almost half than that of the C63, making it a very sweet deal. Most swanky restaurants do something called the tasting menu, which is a collection of sample portions of various dishes that they have to offer. The C43 is something like that, giving you a taste of everything AMG without really charging you the full AMG price tag. Now, it is a bargain, but in that bargain, you end up not getting the piping hot signature dish, which in this case is the C63, and that leaves you wanting for more.